of time. We now move on. And recent poll findings in Taiwan are being cited by Beijing as a sign of growing public dissatisfaction with the Democratic Progressive Party. Responding to the survey, the State Council Taiwan Affairs Office said that more than half of respondents view the DPP as untrustworthy, ineffective in governance and lacking integrity. Spokesperson Zhang Han claimed the results reflect anger over what she called the party's neglect of public welfare, political infighting and suppression of dissent. She also accused the DPP leadership under Lai Ching-te of obstructing cross-strait exchanges, pushing economic decoupling and seeking foreign backing at Taiwan's expense. Beijing further criticized weapons purchases and warned that such policies risk instability. Zhang urged Taiwan residents to clearly reject separatist activities and what he described as dangerous provocations. Let's listen in.
民调反映出台湾民众对民进党当局无视民众利益福祉，一意孤行、谋独挑衅、大搞政治恶斗、打压政治异己、执意媚外卖台的强烈不满。
Okay, joining us now is Ross Feingold, a political analyst, joining us live from Taipei in Taiwan. Ross, thank you very much for joining us. Pleasure, as always. How credible is Beijing's claim to interpret that Taiwanese public sentiment, when it doesn't allow free elections or even free polling at home?
It's not really a competition. The public here in Taiwan is reflecting their views about how they think the current government of Lai Ching-te is handling various issues. And the opinions of China have zero effect on how the public feels that the current government here in Taiwan is handling the economy or any other issues. So China can pick and choose the poll result, but again, it won't really affect how the public feels. In fact, the same series of polls that China's spokesperson is citing also show that the public feels that Lai Ching-te does a better job of handling relations with China than the opposition parties, even though Lai's polling on other questions, such as integrity, were not so great. But ultimately, this is up to the voters in Taiwan. There's local elections in November 2026, and the next presidential and legislative election will be in January 2028. And the public will vote on a range of issues, whether that's handling of domestic policy issues, as well as relations with China. And China's spokespersons criticizing the current president of Taiwan is really not going to have much effect on how the public in Taiwan votes.
Indeed. What more can you tell us about the DPP party, their current handling of course, the ongoing situation with China? Of course, today those war games have just concluded. What is the public sentiment as far as you can tell?
It's soft. The public support level for the two major political parties is usually somewhere in the low 30s. Then the third largest party often gets in the mid-20s, and then there's usually about 20% or so of the public which is undecided. So if we go back to the presidential election in January 2024, Lai Ching-te was elected only with 40.05% of the vote. Nearly 60% of the voters didn't vote for him. They voted for either of the two other candidates that split the opposition vote. And also, his signs indicate that the DPP won't do well in those local elections in November 2026. But on the other hand, they've won 3 consecutive presidential elections, and they do control the executive branch, and they will be the government of the day, at least until January 2028, when the next presidential election occurs. So whether it's China or domestically, people just have to deal with the fact that there is a government and it's been duly elected.
Of course, and with the statement comes a comment that says Taiwan's defense spending is provocative, obviously citing that purchase from the $11.1 billion purchase from the United States. Is it credible to accuse Taiwan of provoking instability there?
No, because the threat to Taiwan does come from China, which has not renounce the use of force to take over Taiwan. And Taiwan has to do what it needs to do to prepare for that possibility and to defend itself. And for years, Taiwan governments have underinvested in defense. So in many ways, they're simply playing catch up. China invests an enormous amount of money, which increases year on year in their defense. Their technological capabilities have improved dramatically in recent years and decades, whether that's air, rocket, space, cyber. It's a real threat to Taiwan. So it would be silly for the Taiwan government not to do more to defend Taiwan. And they're under pressure from the United States to do so. And this weapons package is part of the outcome of pressure from the United States that Taiwan needs to do more for its defense.
Indeed, and is this all part of the psychological warfare which China has waged upon the island of Taiwan? What more can you tell us about that entire broader field of what Beijing is using?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So a lot of experts do cite the online and the cognitive warfare efforts of China. And it's true, a lot of content is produced in China directed at the public here in Taiwan, trying to place doubts in the support that Taiwan could expect from the United States, or trying to convince the public in Taiwan that supporting peaceful unification is in the best interest of the people of Taiwan. There's always a debate around elections here in Taiwan, whether or not China's trying to influence the public to vote for candidates perceived as being more friendly to China. And all of that is worthy to research and analyze. But ultimately, the key thing here is the use of military force. It's not about TikTok or other social media content. It's about China's, again, its huge increase in investments in its military, its ever-increasing capabilities, and whether or not Taiwan will have the ability to defend itself should China decide to use force.
Indeed. Ross Feingold, thank you very much as always. It's a pleasure speaking to you here on NewsX World. We now move on, and China has pushed back strongly against criticism from Japan, Australia and European countries over its recent military drills around Taiwan, calling the remarks irresponsible and hypocritical. The live fire exercises held over 2 days involved missile launches as well as deployments of fighter jets, naval ships and Coast Guard vessels around the island. Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Juan said the drills were necessary and justified measures to safeguard China's national sovereignty and territorial integrity. Let's take a listen in.
台独分裂势力以武谋独、装聋作哑，对外部势力干涉中国内政视而不见，却对中方捍卫国家主权和领土完整的必要正义行动说三道四、颠倒黑白、混淆是非，十分虚伪。中方对此坚决反对，并已提出严正交涉。
Japan said the exercises had increased tensions across the Taiwan Strait, while Australia described them as destabilizing. The European Union warned the activity endangered international peace and stability, and in response, Lin said China appreciated support from countries including Russia, Pakistan and Venezuela, and reiterated that Beijing would respond firmly to any provocation on the Taiwan issue. We move on once again, and as AI